Welcome to the show Gold Squadron Gays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays talk about and review their favorite Star Wars content while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm your other host, Charles Rogers, and yes, K-pop Demon Hunters really is that good.
Okay, so I thought about watching it and I was like,
watch it.
I don't know.
Watch it. No,
okay.
I'm fucking dead serious. Watch it. My boyfriend convinced me to watch it by relentlessly bullying me about it. But
Sure.
here's the interesting thing about that. So normally when there's a musical thing that he wants me to watch,
Right.
his way to convince me was playing songs from whatever the thing is.
Okay.
He did not play a single one of the K-pop Demon Hunter songs for me. He just relentlessly bullied me for like a week, literally every day bringing up K-pop Demon Hunters. Until I was like, fine, I'll watch this fucking movie. I watched it. We will need to have a conversation about this movie in one of our exclusive warm-up sections. So I need you to go watch it.
I guess I'll have to watch it soon then, because I just don't have time.
It's an hour and 36 minutes, but also I do understand. I deeply understand.
I know.
As the treasurer for Legacy Expo, I understand not having fucking time. I get it.
Mostly because this episode alone was fucking how long? Like, this took me forever to watch this and do notes today.
It's a fucking hour.
I was like, God
Yeah,
dang.
like, we got to
This
get into
episode
it.
of TV, what is it? I do need to look at the runtime real quick because I'm like,
It's
how?
like the runtime on Disney Plus is 1 hour.
Okay,
Excluding all of the random stuff, it's like 50-ish minutes, 52 minutes, 53 minutes.
Right.
Like, it's a long episode. It's half a fucking movie. I think it's more than half the length of K-pop Demon Hunter.
Yeah. It says 60 minutes, but I don't know how much of that is credits and recap, but I feel like that's maybe 5 or
Yeah,
10
and then there's
minutes.
all the stuff at the end. So, it's
so-
about 52-ish minutes. I think I watched it yesterday for my notes. It was about 50 minutes. What is this long-ass episode that we need to talk about?
This week we're talking about Andor Season 2, Episode 9, Welcome to the Rebellion. In the Ghorman aftermath, Mon Mothma takes a stand. Cassian must carry out a difficult extraction. Charles, what's one thing you liked about this episode and one thing you liked?
I do have a thing I disliked.
Oh, you did?
actually,
Okay,
about this
joking
episode. Yeah,
then.
we are actually going to talk
I
about
know.
a thing I disliked.
I was just joking, but that's hilarious. Great. Okay.
One thing I liked about this episode, I really want to highlight the score again, which Brandon Roberts, I believe, is the composer. Absolutely nailed it with this episode. Fucking fantastic, even by the standards of Andor. Like, I literally listen to this when I'm working. That's how good it is. Absolutely shout out to that. It's so fucking good. One thing I disliked, we'll cover it here because there's not a lot of things I disliked about this episode. This is my current favorite piece of Star Wars media, period. The absence of Perrin and Lita is very much felt in this episode. That for all we went through, all of that in season 1, all of how much the wedding episode was a big deal, and Perrin and Lita, their reactions to this moment, this pivotal moment, this is kind of the apex of Mon Mothma's character. Like, she will not really do anything else this substantial for the rest of the show. To not have Perrin and Lita's reactions to this is a huge drop ball for those characters. So I was very unhappy when we made it through the whole episode, and I was like, what happened to Perrin and Lita? Now, I do know that one of the writers or somebody has gone on and done an interview. I don't know who it was. And they explained that there was a scene that was written. I do not believe it was filmed, but I didn't check that. But it's not in the show. There was a scene that was written or that was conceptualized where Mon would, I guess, stop over at Chandrilla and she would have a conversation with Perrin and Lita about all this. That scene's not in the show. And when you're looking at media and media analysis, it is important to not let what could have been or what was cut or what the writers wanted but couldn't do seep into the media. As it stands, their absence it feels off. Like, it feels missing. That's the thing that feels like it's missing from this episode. So as it stands, that's the one thing I disliked. We don't get any closure on Perrin and Lita. We will really talk about when we get to the finale, the fact that the show drops the ball on giving us any closure for Perrin. And no, an interview with Tom Bissell does not count as closure for Perrin if the show failed to give it to us within the context of it after setting him up. So that's the one thing I disliked about this episode. What about you, Bradley?
The one thing I liked about this episode was just, I liked it. I thought it was really good. This really just, I think like it's such a powerhouse episode. I really liked it. I think the beginning is a tad building, like it's a little slow in the beginning, but I mean, I think other than that, it's just perfect. Like it's just such a fun escape, the cops episode kind of. It's like it's so fun. The one thing I didn't like, I think there's only one random scene that is kind of shoehorned in. I don't know why it's shoehorned in other than to be like this person is still alive and exists and he's here. I don't understand it other than that. And it's the Melshi scene. I don't quite get it. And maybe you can explain it to me when we get to it. Other than just he's here, like why is this in the episode? Like none of it, like it's such a random shoehorned in between like them escaping and then them in the safe house. Like it's just randomly inserted in there and I don't get it. So I don't know. Like it's just kind of there. But maybe if you had like put it after the escape and we stay on Yavin with all the other stuff, it wouldn't have been that weird. I just think there's something about like it being intercut with the escape and then them in the safe house. I'm like, huh? Okay, Melshi's alive and well. Like, okay, great. We love that for him. But yeah, that's my only random complaint about the episode. Section 1. On Coruscant, Senator Oren of Ghorman is arrested, protesting that he is being detained without a warrant and warning other senators that Ghorman's fate could soon be theirs. Mon Mothma and Bail Organa express outrage over the Empire's massacre on Ghorman, and Mon urges Bail to help her speak in the Senate and begin pushing back openly against the Empire. She insists they must stop hiding and plan for escape, believing the time to act is now. Bail agrees something must be said about Ghorman, but refuses to flee yet, saying Yavin Base and the rebellion are not ready. Bail warns Mon of surveillance. Another senator found a bug in her office and urges secrecy and caution. Meanwhile, at Luthen's gallery, Clea assigns Cassian a journalist alias, using the Ghorman massacre as his cover story to explain their presence near Mon. She tells Cassian that they must be ready to extract Mon if she publicly speaks out, hinting at the dangerous stakes involved. Cassian expresses that he doesn't plan to return after this mission, and Clea presses him on whether he's quitting the network or quitting the rebellion entirely.
Fucking haunting ass intro that we get. And literally going from if you watch this when it came out of your marathoning it, going from the Ghorman massacre to that intro to this scene is crazy. But we get into this scene and then we immediately see Bail Organa. You wanted to talk finally because this is a more substantial episode for him.
Right.
Who is playing Bail Organa? Because it is not Jimmy Smith.
It is not. He has been recasted. The new actor's name is Benjamin Bratt. He is a Disney trifecta.
Nice.
So he is, but I want to talk about one movie before I do the Disney trifecta. So he is in probably my favorite movie of all time. I would say this is like in my top 3, like desert island movies. He is in Miss Congeniality.
Really?
As the main love interest, Eric Matthews. He is so good in this movie. And I love Miss Congeniality. But yeah, so he's in that movie. But his Disney trifecta, on the other hand, he is in Coco, Disney Pixar's Coco. He is in obviously this, and he is also in Doctor Strange for Marvel. So he's plays the character that uses magic to cure his paralysis of his hands or whatever, and then like Doctor Strange is like, oh, that's why you want to do magic just so you can like or not his paralysis.
Oh,
of
that
walking.
guy.
Yeah, he can't
That
like walk
guy.
or whatever. And yeah, so he just uses magic just to walk. That's all he's using it for. He's not using it for any other nefarious purpose, just to heal himself, right? And so that's who he plays. So there you go. He's in a couple other things. He was actually in a movie with Harrison Ford back in the day. So there's another Star Wars connection, which is called Clear and Present Danger. So there's his Star Wars connection. But yeah, he's pretty prolific. And I honestly, it takes a second and then you get over it. He's now Bail Organa. Like,
shout
I just
out
don't
to them
care.
for not using fucking AI weird Luke again.
Yeah,
Or
that would
like
have been
trying
weird.
to do any weird stuff. Like again, it does take a minute, but I have said in the past that going from the final episode to Rogue One, it is more jarring that everyone drops 10 years off of their face than it is that Bail Organa has switched actors. And apparently too, this was Kathleen Kennedy's idea. Was they were like, what are we gonna do? And she's like, well, why don't you just get Benjamin Bratt to do it? And he's fucking amazing.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, like, he's fine. I mean, I thought he was great. Honestly, because we had just finished reading The Mask of Fear and I rewatched this, I'm like, Oh, I could see them like doing the Mask of Fear like live action. I don't know, like I because when I was visualizing it, I was visualizing him
Mhm.
as Bail Organa, and that's just now that is my mindset. Like I just, you just have to train your brain to give it up and just go, okay, great, this is the new guy, and that's just what I do now. So it was great.
It's the same character.
Yep.
Recasting is fine. So I found it very funny that there's a line that Oren says that it's my people today and yours tomorrow, and that line happens over a shot of Bail Organa, the senator from Alderaan.
Hmm.
Alderaan, who famously is intact and not exploded.
Mm.
But I also
Interesting.
found this really interesting because it got me thinking. I had already been thinking a lot. I mentioned a couple times that I wanted to talk about like the interesting thing that Andor does with how it frames the Gormans and how it frames the Gorman massacre and how it does that within the broad context Star Wars and what it is saying from a historical perspective. Because the Gore, as we see in Andor, are both predominantly human and also they are wealthy. They are
Mm.
like higher class.
Right.
It's not like some random out of rim world. It's not some dust ball. It's like it's space Paris. And I think what's interesting here is when you look at the broad arc of the rebellion and you also look at the broad arc of atrocities that the empire has committed, that the two that most galvanize the galaxy and particularly the core world that are primarily human centric and that have all of the funding to pay for this are the Gorman massacre and the destruction of Alderaan, when we've had countless other atrocities up to this point. And so like the question gets asked, well, why didn't, this happen? Why didn't this big moment happen when all of the Geonosians got wiped out? And the answer is it's because the Geonosians are ugly bug people that don't look like humans.
Yeah, no one cared.
And no one cares.
Yeah.
And that's the sad reality of our real life is that when you are trying to get people to care to this level, it becomes a question of optics and it becomes a question of how much are they seeing themselves in what's happening,
Right.
which is also another thing to note is that the Geonosians were on the enemy side in the Clone Wars 20
Right.
years
People were
ago.
like, well,
And
they
that
were the
cultural
enemies.
bias
Yeah.
is still present.
Right.
Matthew Stover's Revenge of the Sith novel, Count Dooku, who is a human supremacist, actually explicitly, we get his inner monologue at one point, explicitly confirms that, at least in Legends, that was his goal with making the entire Trade Federation Council alien. He was
Mm.
trying to set up a human supremacist government.
Right.
And this is something that we see happen over and over and over again in our real life, that trying to get people to engage with this level of outrage in these things that are happening becomes tricky. I had mentioned before, even just a minor example, I actually looked up her name. It's Claudette Colvin, was somebody that was involved in the Montgomery bus boycott, but was not the face of it. And the reason she was not the face of it was because she was an unwed mother and because she was super young. And they didn't think that she would make a good face for it. And they thought Rosa Parks was going to be a much better person to put forward because they were trying to get white middle class Americans to stand up and go, oh, hey, this actually really sucks.
Right.
That was the case that I immediately thought of, but we see it throughout history. And we also see it, in our modern day. One of the biggest, like, fictional things that I see all the time is like somebody taking like some oppression that is happening to one particular group and making it apply to a less historically marginalized group to highlight how bad those things are. And that's a discussion that can be had by people that are much smarter than me in that area. But the reason for that is to try to show people, hey, these things really happen and they're really terrible, but you just don't notice because they're not happening in your sphere. And this is the very interesting thing that has happened as the result of the Gorman massacre and Alderaan both being the big catalyst for rebellion. It's these rich human centric worlds make the people of Corellia and Coruscant and Chandrilla and all of this sit up and take notice and say, wow, they are actually just killing people, huh? That was an extended rant on history
Yeah.
and like revolutionary movements. And it's a whole thing. There are much smarter people than me that have covered this sort of thing in the past, but it is accurate to, unfortunately, how these things go. And that is a shitty thing about reality, that it tends to go that way. But it tends to go that way. I also find, speaking of legends, I find the reversal of Mon Mothma and Bail Organa's characters to be very interesting to me in this show. And I say that because I just reread Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader by
Okay.
James Luceno. And one thing in Legends is that Mon Mothma is an extremely vocal anti-Palpatine senator from the beginning. And Bail Organa in Legends is much more like hesitant to say anything. Whereas in canon, we see here, even though Bail Organa is a little more strategic, Mon Mothma has kind of a whole different character where she's been biding her time and now she's like, I gotta say something. In Legends, she was saying stuff for 15 years.
Okay. So she's like that political person who's like constantly, they're always authentic to their whatever, their
Right.
dislike of the current reigning person.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, she was that in Legends,
Got it. That makes a
as
lot of sense.
opposed to in canon, she's more of the I'm waiting for my moment to
Right, right,
speak
right.
about. I also do like that he's going to continue to stall while she goes to Yavin. I think that's a pretty good way of explaining where the fuck he is for a
Yeah.
year.
I
I would
mean,
love to know how he ended up on Yavin,
right,
because I think actually no, he is still a senator by the time of A New Hope, because Leia's big excuse for
right,
like why they can't board is it's an officially registered consular ship.
right. And she's like, I have every
I'm on a
diplomatic
diplomatic
immunity.
mission.
Yeah, yeah,
I have my passport. I have my diplomatic immunity.
right.
And Vader's like, you have
Yeah,
a
we don't
prison
care
cell
about
and a
that.
torture droid. We do not care. Ronnie Guja.
Oh, his fake name.
His fake fucking name is amazing.
It's not
Ronnie
as
Guja.
fun as Valerian Sky.
Varian Sky.
Or Varian Sky. Valeria, that's the movie Valerian. That's what I was thinking of.
I think you're also thinking of Valeria from Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah. Well, Varian Sky is much cooler. I don't know. I guess it's just not as like in your face of a name. I think that's the whole point. He's supposed to just be like this mid-rim reporter, so it's supposed to be like, it's just a normal guy. Like it's not anything super crazy.
Yeah, I didn't even catch he's basically supposed to be from the suburbs.
Yeah, they
Like
try to play him down.
he's supposed to be like your local ABC affiliate reporter.
Exactly.
Like he's supposed to be your local KT95 reporter, KTLA 95 reporter or whatever.
Right. And we'll
Like
get to it in a second, but like when he checks in or whatever under the name, it's like the guy's like, "Oh, I don't really have a place for you because you're just like a rando, but whatever." Like you're not that important. Like, so okay, whatever.
yeah, you're just a dude.
A dude, yeah.
You're just a dude that works for a random network, but sure, we'll float you, I guess.
I guess. Yeah, right. Well, I mean, if you think about it, there's thousands upon thousands of,
There's
worlds.
thousands of
So it's
reporters.
yeah, so there's probably like billions of reporters. So it's not that strange, but yeah.
And also Cassian is just fucking done at this point.
He doesn't care yet.
Like he doesn't care. He's done. He's out. He's seen enough. He is having the worst day of his life already. But I love Clea's response to him having this big emotional moment of like, I'm done. I'm out of here. Luthen will understand. And Clea's like, shut the fuck up, dude.
Yeah, she's done.
How many times do we think she's heard this speech from people?
I think she hears it all the time. I think she's always like, okay, you're out. We get it. Like,
Because that's exactly what she does. If you're watching on our video version, which you can watch by going to patreon.com/Gold Squadron Gaze, you can watch Bradley roll his eyes when he imitates Clea saying, okay, sure, whatever, dude. But
right,
I do think she's kind of rolling her eyes in this scene where she's like, yeah, dude, I fucking hear this all the time. Like, boo fucking who, get over yourself.
right. I mean, she makes a point too, like, she's basically saying, like, are you done with like Luthen and then, us? Are you done with like the rebellion as a whole? Because like that's two separate things. Like, are you done? Or are you like you're just done with Luthen? Like you're just like whatever. Like, that's I mean, valid. Like I could see him in a world where Cassian's like, oh, I'm just completely done with Luthen, but I'm still gonna help the rebellion in some
Right.
way. But this just seems like he's like, nah, I need to like be done. Even though I still kind of believe in the rebellion or whatever, but I'm like over everything at this point.
Yeah, and it really does highlight too the separation between Luthen and the Yavin base.
Right.
That they are entirely separate entities at this. And Cassian and Luthen will have a conversation about that later in this episode.
Section 2. In Mon's office, Erskine finds a listening device. She immediately smashes it. The ISB agent listening loses contact with the bug, and Erskine tells Mon not to practice her speech in the office, so he can search for more. In the Senate Plaza, Mon practices her speech when Luthen arrives. He reveals that Erskine works for him. Mon feels betrayed, questioning who she can actually trust. Luthen tells her that Bale's team has been compromised and can't safely extract her to Yavin 4 after her speech. He says he's sending a new agent to confirm his identity. The agent will say, I have friends everywhere. At ISB headquarters, an agent briefs Legret on Mon's status and notes that their driver, Cloris, reports that she hasn't left the Senate. He asks about technical issues, and the agent reports Mon is the only one whose signal has gone dark.
I love how over the fucking listening device Mon is. She just like immediately smashes it with an ashtray.
She didn't think about it like,
She
oh,
doesn't even think
maybe,
about it. It's
yeah,
just
maybe they'll
smash.
notice that my thing is not working anymore. Like,
She doesn't care. Well, at this point,
yeah,
she's gonna make the speech anyway.
true.
Like, so she knows this is about to go down, and she's like, whatever, I'm just gonna smash it. I don't want them listening to me.
Right.
And then Erskine, who definitely knows that Luthen's at the plaza, sends her to the plaza, which was something that didn't make sense on my first viewing, or even my second, but this time I watched, I was like, oh, he definitely knows Luthen's down there, and he's probably been told, send her to the plaza
Right. I need
at
to
some
talk to
point.
her, send her down here. Yeah.
Although my favorite part of this sequence, by far, is that when the listening device goes dead, instead of launching immediately into full panic mode, the ISB has to call tech support.
Yeah, like, wait a minute. Is it
They
on our
literally
end?
call the internal tech support and have them do the diagnostics. Like, this is part of how this gets delayed because they have to call the helpline and open an incident ticket. And as someone who works in banking, this hit hard.
It's
This is
too
like,
funny.
oh, you have this, what is clearly an urgent crisis brewing, but you have to follow the procedure of going through the entire helpline before you can do anything about it. Fucking amazing. I do not love that the subtitles will spoil part of the speech if you turn them on.
Mm.
So if you're watching without
Oh,
subtitles,
like she
Mon's
says
talking too
yeah, what she's
quietly,
saying.
the subtitles, instead of doing like whispered practicing or something, they will say part of the speech that she is rehearsing.
Gotcha. I saw that and I just didn't read the words, but I guess I could go back and read it and be like, oh, that's like literally the exact moment where she
That's
says,
literally the exact thing she
yeah.
says. Yeah.
Okay.
Did
Because I
not love
thought that,
that.
yeah, I thought they were gonna see when I thought they did that, I thought she was gonna be doing the speech that she gives in Rebels, like, and then she would have been practicing that speech, but it would have been like, you know what I mean? Like, you just like as
We'll
a nice little
talk
nod.
about that Rebels speech. We'll talk
Yeah,
about both Rebels speeches, actually. And then Luthen shows up. She is terrified of him.
right.
And like Genevieve O'Reilly's acting, please give Genevieve O'Reilly, if not Genevieve, then Audria, but one of these two, give them best actress because holy fucking shit. Genevieve in the scene where she's shaking, like she is holding it together. And like if you read The Mask of Fear and you know, Mon Mothma has an anxiety disorder. She's medicated. She is closer to Luthen than she has probably been since the wedding. She is fucking terrified of this man and barely trying to hold it together. And even if, and it's not like Luthen's saying anything like threatening at this point directly to her, she's just been dealing with his shit for a decade now. And she knows what he's willing to do. And I love this scene so much.
When she brings up Take Holma and she's
Another
like,
false savior.
right. She's like, so are you just gonna basically, she's just like, are you gonna kill me now that I'm a liability? Like, and I love how I feel like in the back of his, like, you can see the flicker where he kind of considers it for like a hot second. And then he's like, no, I actually need you for other stuff. Like,
Well, because here's the thing. Here's my big note about this section is it really highlights to the degree that living in this environment has corrupted both of these people. Neither of them can see past their own paranoia at this point. Mon only escapes the Senate because she sees past hers and trusts Cassian, right? But in this moment, specifically too, when she's just found out that her assistant of 3 years or whatever has been working for Luthen the whole time, and that's a huge betrayal of trust for her. Like, it is very difficult for her to see outside of this web that she's been sitting in the middle of for years and years and years. And that's part of what makes her final shot in episode 12 so impactful, where she actually seems relaxed. This woman has not been relaxed since the petition of the 2000s. And even then, this woman hasn't been relaxed since Attack of the Clones. Like, And it's just been getting worse. It's been getting worse and worse and worse. And I love that. I love this scene. Also, these two actors are absolutely killing it.
Section 3. At dawn, Mon tells Erskine she feels deeply betrayed, and she asks when he began working for Luthen, and he says it was after the wedding. She fires him, refusing to acknowledge his apology, and dismisses him. Outside the Senate, Cassian meets with Luthen and Clea. She informs them that Mon hasn't been heard from since learning about Erskine's allegiance. He contacts Clea via comlink to confirm Mon dismissed him, and he's unsure whether or not she will still give her speech. Luthen tells Cassian that Mon will be heading to Yavin 4, but he himself will stay behind. Cassian warns that the Empire will catch him eventually, and Luthen accepts the risk, saying that they both knew what they were doing by joining the rebellion. Clea interrupts their conversation, reporting that Bail Organa's team has compromised and Samaj doesn't know Mon's plan. Luthen hesitates to act, but Clea and Cassian push forward. Cassian asks what happens if Mon is arrested, and Clea replies, "It all comes down."
Speaking of actors who are absolutely nailing it, the Erskine and Mon scene could have fallen a little bit flat. Like it really could have for me because we are missing a couple of seasons worth of buildup between these two characters.
Right.
Like we've only gotten a handful of scenes with them, and this is a big pivotal betrayal moment for Mon.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason it works is because the actor that's playing Erskine and Genevieve O'Reilly are both making it work.
Right.
They are selling it super hard, so I believe at this point.
Yeah,
They've
because
given us enough info that we know, but the actors have to sell it.
yeah, because I feel like in another reality, I feel like this story, the way that this is presented to us is, yeah, and we know that he's like her personal assistant or whatever, and then she trusts him because he's her assistant. But I feel like if they had like fleshed this out and they could have made a whole plot line where, there is all these like as we know from the books and other novels, there's all these rumors that she's always, sleeping with all these random people that are not her husband. And I think one thing that could have made this actually very interesting is that if Erskine and her had more of an intimate relationship, this betrayal would have been even that much more like dramatic because like was he quote unquote sleeping with her because he
Not
actually
in
cared about her,
Oh,
but like
you were thinking they should have hooked up.
oh yeah. No, I think that would have
I
made it so much more dramatic.
no.
Yeah.
No, I don't agree with that.
What? That would have been
I
so
don't.
romantic. They would have been
I
like in
don't.
love, but then
I
he
do not
actually,
ship Mon and Erskine. Jesus Christ.
you just want him to be gay. That's the only reason why.
Isn't he like, no, he's not related to her.
What? No, he's Gorman and Nabubian.
Okay, he is Nabubian. Well, one, he's clearly gay, but also like,
Oh my God. He's
I don't.
bisexual if he's Gorman, by the way.
You know what, Bradley? Don't use my own words
And
against me,
technically, he's
okay?
only half Gorman, so he's only half bisexual. So,
Look. No, I think that anytime you introduce that element of intimacy to the plot, I
yeah,
think it complicates things. I do
right,
think that it would have been interesting to see them have a more, maybe not a sexual relationship, but definitely a closer one because they kind of have to speed run it. Like I
right.
would have loved to see him get involved with her family bullshit. I would have loved to see her like confiding in him. I'd love to see some of that, but we didn't get to see any of that. And so that's my issue. You just want to write. I'll bet you there's fan fiction.
I already know there is. I'm just saying.
You
I feel
already
like
know there is. You already checked Archive of Our Own.
well, I haven't checked, but I'm pretty sure, like, just by the statistical nature of life, I just know this is a thing that probably
Oh,
exists.
there always is. But I could look. I can always check Archive of Our Own.
Yeah, let us know how many stories there are. Maybe there's not very many, but I feel like there there has to be at least one. If I
There
even
are
remotely thought of it.
13
See,
as of recording this
I am not
episode.
crazy. People out there, I'm with you. All the shippers, I'm with you. I get it. I can see
There
the
are
vision.
there are there are 13 fit.
And you know what? 13 is a magic number. And thank you for all 13 of you who believe in me and believe in my random ship that I just now thought of in this moment. So there is merit to
There is look.
the story. I'm not
I
saying I
hate you.
want it. I'm just saying that I think in a
Uh-huh.
longer term
Hmm.
season, if we're padding out the season, I think a interesting dynamic would be for her to trust him to this intimate level that the
Uh-huh.
betrayal is that much more because on one side is already complicated if she's his boss. You know what I mean? Like that's already a complicated, power dynamic. However, if you combine
Andor is
that with
the
that
only show that I would trust with a workplace romance
romance, yeah,
comedy, workplace romance
comedy.
story. I don't know why I just said comedy.
I don't
It
want it
was
to be a
not
comedy.
funny.
I want it to be dramatic as fuck.
You want it to be
Um,
you want it to be dark and edgy.
yeah, I
You want
like dark romance, not a rom-com.
you
That's
be
great.
very careful about that, Bradley. You be careful about saying you like dark romance on
Uh-huh.
God's internet. I do think it's interesting that talking about the last scene too with her continued paranoia, this is a sign of her continued paranoia that this is probably the closest person to her at this point.
Right.
And she fires him immediately when she finds out he's working for Luthen. Which, on the one hand, I see her point if she thinks that somebody close to Luthen's going to kill her.
True.
But on the other hand, this is like one of the only allies she's physically got in the building at this point, and she just fired him.
I mean, who can you trust at this point? Like she said, she can't really
It's a,
trust anybody.
who can she trust?
Right.
I also love seeing the different areas of the Senate. So we see a catering entrance when Luthen and Cassian and Clay are having their conversation. So I do love seeing the different areas of the building. We kind of got that a little bit in the Clone Wars, but we're getting it even more here.
Mm. Yeah, I like how not everything can be beautiful Valencia, Spain entrance. It has to be
No, it's
like,
a fucking loading dock in the
yeah,
back.
there's a loading dock sometimes. Yeah, I love that.
Erskine's also so upset about being fired.
Oh, he's basically crying. Like,
He's so mad about these. He's storming out of the Senate like, won't you ask Luthen? Mon fired me.
right.
Which is so gay assistant of him.
So half bisexual of him.
So half bisexual. I don't even know what the fuck half bisexual means, but you know
I don't
what?
either, but
We're running with
I'm
this
running
bit
with
of
it.
all Gormans are bisexual and open relationships.
That's true. Well, because I can't
Let's
judge, people from Naboo. Which why I jokingly say Naboobian. I don't actually know what a Naboo person is called, or
the
a person
Naboo.
from Naboo. They're just the
They're
Naboo.
called Naboo. They're called the Naboo.
The Naboo. Okay, well, I like Naboobian better, but yeah, I don't know what they like. So,
Luthen, this conversation with Luthen and Cassian, which I don't know if you know, but it's the last time Luthen and Cassian will ever speak to each other.
oh, I didn't catch that. Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Well, he does say, I mean, at one point he says Yavin's not for me or something like that, or he says
Yeah,
like,
Cassian tries to get him to go to Yavin basically to like save his life, which even after everything, Cassian's like, I don't want you to die, dude.
right, right, right.
And Luthen's like, he's still attached to this idea he has of burning the sun, like burning himself for sunset he'll never see. Like at this point, he's resigned himself to his fate. He literally cannot imagine a future beyond what he's currently doing. He not only knows he's going to die, he's expecting to die, he's planning on it, and I think he's actively seeking it out.
Mm.
I think he's going to keep going until they kill it. And there's no version of this that doesn't end with them killing him. We also get a really interesting observation from Luthen that's basically like, hey, something keeps moving you into my way, Cassian. Like you keep showing up places you need to be.
And
Weird how
then
that works.
he proceeds to then list every single planet we've ever seen in the show ever.
If only we had some sort of mystical power that could explain how this is happening.
Mm,
Maybe a force of some sort.
something.
Who knows?
Don't know what it
But
is.
I do think it's interesting that even Luthen, who's been very, very skeptical of everything ever, notes that like there seems to be some that's working behind the scenes to put Cassian where he needs to be.
Section 4. Cloris reports to the Gret from his airspeeder saying Mon has not left her office and that it would be unusual for her to travel home without him. At the Senate Rotunda, Erskine walks through the security kiosk followed by 3 agents. Meanwhile, Cassian, disguised as a journalist, presents his fake credentials and is cleared to enter. The agents regroup at the Senate Cafe to finalize their extraction plan. They are revealed to be part of Bail Organa's resistance and plan to meet Mon after her speech. At ISB headquarters, an agent warns Legret about the potential Senate dissent over Ghorman. Legret dismisses it, saying that the chair has already set the agenda and won't allow dissenters to speak. In the Senate corridor, Bail urges Mon not to go through with her speech, but she insists. He assures her his team will be ready, and when Mon asks if he trusts them, Bail admits he doesn't know them personally, but encourages her, promising to see her at Yavin next year. Before leaving, he tells her to tear the shit out of this place.
The use of the press terms in Star Wars and like the presence of journalists is something that is very cool to me.
Yeah.
I love when Star Wars is journalists.
Because they don't really cover it a lot up until I think really honestly, I don't think you ever notice it until we get to Rebels. I feel like that's the only time they ever really ever mention any kind of journalism or anything.
I'm making that face that's like I'm about to tell you some times when it has definitely come up. And you can see that face in our video extended coverage by signing up for $3 a month at our Patreon at patreon.com/Gold Squadron Case.
Love that for you.
I love Bradley's face. I loved Bradley's face in that moment. And that's an advertisement for our Patreon. This is Bradley's face whenever I launch into the spiel. Oh, Lord. It has come up before in canon. The Aftermath books have several sections about the press.
Right.
And also, there is a character in the High Republic. We'll get to the High Republic later on the podcast at some point, who is a reporter. And particularly in phase 3, like broadcasts and like the role of information comes up a lot. So this is not really the first time we've seen like press terms in Star Wars, but it is always nice to see them acknowledge that journalists exist. And journalists have also played such a huge role over this season. So we've seen how the Imperial machine uses them and like how they support the system and how they prop that up. And we're going to see later on in the next section the senators doing their bit to feed into that narrative. Also, the chair is just going to block Mon from speaking, which they're just going to use bullshit parliamentary rules on her, which I like. But keep that in your back pocket, the idea of bullshit parliamentary rules. This will be a surprise tool that will help us later. The conversation between Bail and Mon is so fucking good. I love it so much because he acknowledges that he's going to be, brave enough to stay, or she acknowledges, sorry, that he's going to be brave enough to say she has to be brave and go. Their paths are diverging, which is fucking awesome. I love that. I love the line that, like, we do what we can, that he says, like, it's so fucking good. I love the relationship between these two, and Benjamin Bratt and Genevieve O'Reilly are playing it beautifully.
Is
I
this also
also,
the first time we hear shit in Star Wars?
no, that was season 1, episode 3.
Oh, what
Linus
was that?
Mosk says it.
Does he?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I've never caught that.
We literally talked about it in our episode.
Did we?
We literally talked about it.
That's wild. Because I just swear words
To be
in Star Wars
fair,
are just, yeah.
to be fair to you, you were filming Temptation Island at the time that we were reviewing. And in fact, I am pretty sure actually you were still at home, but you were getting ready to go film Temptation Island. So knowing, having now watched that show, which patrons can view my multiple weeks worth of feedback to Bradley about that show, I can understand why your brain was a little bit scattered.
Oh, he says shit, we're under siege.
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. And then Beryl Organa says, tear the shit out of this place. And then it says also used, this is serious shit here, said by Ghorman front member Sam. Oh, shit. Well, I guess I just didn't catch it when Sam said it. That's funny. Okay, so
To
now this
be
is,
fair, I don't really pay attention to Sam.
yeah, I was like,
So
now this is the third time we've heard
it's
said
the
shit in Star
third
Wars.
time we've heard the word shit.
And
Yep.
it's the third time in this show. So that's actually funny. Yeah, because we know, of course, they wanted to say fuck the Empire in the first season, but then they never did. So interesting that they did get in 3 shits. So
They get in 3 shits. So shit's fine, but fuck
fuck,
isn't.
you can't use fuck. Yeah, that's too much.
Actually, interesting you bring up that fuck the Empire scene because that's going to come up
Oh,
later on in one of my notes. My final note, though, for this section is this conversation also pulls double duty because it took me 3 watches to catch this. This is the moment that Mon figures out that Luthen was right. When she starts pressing Bail about, like,
right. Like, do you trust your people?
do you trust your people? Do you know them?
Right.
And you remember Luthen said he's sending a guy that he knows and he trusts. Luthen really hammered that home that I am sending someone who I know and that
Right.
I trust. And so she's asking Bale, like, do you know your people? Like, personally, he's like, no, I can't. And that's where she's starting to put the calculation together that Luthen was right. That team is probably compromised.
Right.
And she maybe needs to listen to whoever Luthen is sending. She's not quite there yet, but this is where that starts, where she starts realizing that.
Section 5. Cassian blends in with reporters in the press gallery as the Oathkeeper begins the session. Erskine joins him and confirms Cassian's identity through the code phrase and leads him to the chambers. Senators give speeches honoring the fallen Imperials in Ghorman and framing Ghorman as the aggressors. Meanwhile, two of Bale's agents retrieve weapons. At ISB, an agent tells Legret that a Senate agent has urgent intel. Legret contacts the agent, revealing one of Bale's agents, Beska, as a ISB double agent. She kills the other agent with his blaster, and a senator yields her time to Bale, who invokes an emergency clause to give Mon the floor. At the same time, Beska reestablishes contact with her ISB handlers and awaits further instructions. As Mon prepares to speak, everyone makes their way to her. Legret attempts to stop the broadcast but fails. Mon enters her pod, steadies herself, and begins addressing the Senate. Legret desperately tries to cut the feed, and Mon continues, warning of the dangers of losing objective truth, and she declares that the Ghorman massacre was unprovoked genocide, and the names of the monsters that will come for them all is Emperor Palpatine. The Senate broadcast is finally shut down, and Luthen contacts Erskine and asks for Cassian's location. Cassian meets Mon outside her chamber and tells her he was in Ghorman, and then uses the code phrase to identify himself. In the turbo lift, he mentions Vel and Yavin and trying to earn Mon's trust. He assures her that Luthen may be difficult, but he's her best shot at survival. Outside the lift, a crowd of reporters surrounds them, and Beska approaches and pulls a blaster on Mon, revealing herself as an ISB agent. Erskine accuses her of being a rebel spy to create confusion, and Cassian shoots her. Cassian leads Mon away while Erskine provides cover, and Imperial forces flood the Senate building. Chloris heads for the Senate, and Cassian and Mon spot Chloris near the plaza. She warns Cassian that he's ISB, and Cassian shoots him, shocking Mon. They run off, and Cassian flies Mon's speeder over the Senate and vanishes into the city skyline.
I was screaming, crying, throwing up when I watched this for the first time in ways that I cannot articulate on a mic. This was like a religious experience for me.
Yeah.
Watching this episode, because for years, I have wanted to see Mon Mothma's escape from the Senate. We didn't even see it in Legends. All we know is that she barely escaped in Legends. We never saw it. In the Rebels episode Secret Cargo, it takes place after the escape. Yeah. And the minute she showed up as a character in this show and they mentioned the Ghormans in like episode 4, I was like, we're going to fucking see the escape and Cassian's going to get her out. Did I not say that literally years ago? And I got it, and it's glorious, and it's everything I could have possibly ever wanted. This is fucking amazing. This is thriller writing. Like,
it really is.
Holy fucking shit. This is so tense. You know she's going to escape because Cassian and her both have plot armor. Right. And Erskine has plot armor. They all have plot armor.
I guess you forget about that. Erskine has the plot armor too.
You forget about it when you watch this, that all three of these people are protected by the plot because they all show up later on down in the plot. Mm-hmm. But you forget about that because it's so good. We get the first senator we're hearkening back to that like post 9/11 like way that they talked about the military. The first senator right away is invoking the troops.
Right.
Is talking about how
the brave soldiers, the brave soldiers, Imperials,
brave Imperials, blah, 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 blah. Like that's the first one, which is amazing. Then they get one of the guys from Game of Thrones out there to talk about, he's obviously talking about Cyril when he's like,
right, yeah,
we lost one of our own citizen too,
right,
etc. Like he's obviously talking about Cyril because he's the only dude who was not an Imperial soldier or on the plaza, which they're not invoking his name. This is what I meant when I said Cyril would only become a footnote in history.
He's just a guy that died there.
Yeah. He's just a guy that was there.
Yeah.
Yep. So fuck you, Cyril. This is your one contribution to history. You got mentioned during a speech and not even one of the particularly interesting ones. Because they keep dropping words like insurgency and insurrection. And they're really, the senators are basically up there sucking Palpatine's dick.
Yeah.
So fucking hard. Because that's all the Senate exists to do at this, is we got actual debate in the first season. This is something I think we would have seen if we'd gotten the full 5-season arc. The first season, there's a little bit of debate. They're having some discussion, but by this point, they are fully sucking Palpatine's dick.
And I find it interesting that, 2 out of the 3 senators are aliens. So it's interesting that, like, because the whole obviously the whole point of the Empire is to be very human centric
It's
and
a
wouldn't
human
be
supremacist
right.
state, yeah.
So it's
But they're
so
still letting the aliens go up and talk in the Senate
right.
because they're harmless.
It's just I just found it very interesting they would
Well,
let them be those
it's a we
mouthpieces. Yeah.
talked well actually it's interesting you bring that up because we talked earlier about optics, right?
Right.
We talked about optics and like particularly within the Star Wars universe the speciesist makeup. So we talked about like why don't people care when the ugly bug people that tried to overthrow the Republic 20 years ago get wiped out? And the flip side of that is that one of the ways to pacify alien population is to let them see aliens serving in the Imperial government. They're not serving anywhere that matters. They're not in the military. There are no alien moth. The only alien on Palpatine's like inner circle, there's two, Sly Moore and Masa Maeda. And you're really never going to see Sly Moore in public.
Right.
You're really only going to see Masa Maeda. And even then, they've replaced him with this freaky Oathkeeper guy
Yeah. Why didn't they use
who's a
him in
weirdo.
this show?
He probably would have pulled too much. Also, like, I like the idea that previously the Senate had been run by Palpatine's right-hand man, and now he can't even
It's
be
just
bothered.
right. It's just nobody's. Yeah.
But I like that part of the way that they've clearly, like, because the Senate has no real power. So, yeah, we can continue to tell aliens, like, oh, yeah, no, you're totally getting represented. You're totally represented.
That's true.
Never mind that the actual people making the decisions are a bunch of human military dudes in a room. It's a really interesting visual thing. They have actual staircases in the Senate, which is crazy that we see someone in Star Wars actually using staircases.
Why is that weird?
When do you ever see this happen?
The Phantom Menace.
Shut up.
Bringing it back to Naboo yet again.
Fuck you. Fuck you.
They literally walk down the steps.
They do walk down the steps
Constantly in that movie.
It's the same. It's the same filming location as part of the movie Conclave.
Yeah, it's the exact staircase.
It's the exact staircase.
I love
Oh
that.
Lord.
And also, isn't that you remember like the whole R2D2 can't go downstairs thing? Like, and then he's literally behind them while they're walking, and then they're like, "How did he get down the stairs?" Because they walk down the stairs when Anakin's walking with Padme, and he's behind them.
Oh yeah. Well, maybe they're in the prequels, but when in the originals do you see people using the stairs?
Well, by then it's the 70s, and no one uses the stairs in the 70s.
They're always using turbo lifts. They're always using. We see stairs, but we so rarely see people actually use them.
Fair, I guess.
Nobody takes the fucking stairs, Bradley.
Well, I think also they have stairs mostly because obviously they couldn't get rid of the set pieces of the
no, because they
architecture
filmed this in
museums.
an actual
Yeah,
building.
they're like in museum, I think, and they filmed the Senate stuff. But
no,
other than that,
I've decided that woke Disney is ruining Star Wars because they've replaced all the turbo lifts with stairs.
with stairs, got it.
A very blink and you miss a detail. In fact, I missed it until I put the subtitles on. The agent that is actually embedded in Bail Organa's security team is Lonnie Young, the redhead.
Yeah, what about him?
The guy who works for Luthen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't miss that agent's one of his, which is probably why she hasn't done anything of note close as she is to Bail Organa. Because if she's feeding info to Lonnie, it is not making it to the rest of ISB.
Wait, who? Huh? I'm
so
confused.
Lonnie has embedded this agent with Bail's security detail.
How do we know that?
Because they say in the episode that she's one of Supervisor Young.
Oh, okay.
They literally say it in the episode.
I missed that. I definitely missed that because unless Lonnie shows up, I'm never gonna be like, oh, they're talking about him. Like I feel like with
it's
ISB
super
stuff,
blink and you miss it.
Yeah, I would never catch that. Okay, so she works for Lonnie, or well, she's a part of. I mean, they're all a part of the ISB, but like she specifically works with him. So if she had been reporting anything about Bail Organa to ISB, she would have gone through Lonnie to do it, and then he would have either A, been using it or not using it, depending on his discretion. Got it. Okay.
Yes, which I thought was a really nice detail as to how Bail has kind of managed to get away scot-free.
Right, because they've been subtly influencing that.
Yes,
to not
Lonnie's been protecting him.
Got it. Interesting. I did not catch that. Okay.
It's a very blink and you miss it detail.
Very blink and you miss it.
I love that Bail uses new Senate procedure that was made up by the Emperor's Council.
That's right.
So he's even bypassing the Senate and going, well, the Emperor's Council said I could do this, so I'm going to do it.
Hey, and then it makes people listen too because he's like, "Whoa, well, this is something that they came up with. So
Yeah,
I'm using the
yeah.
thing they came up with." And he said in his speech yesterday, "Emergency this and emergency that." So
You
this is
heard him
clearly an
say 5 minutes
emergency.
ago that there was
Yeah.
an emergency, so
Yep.
nobody's objected to the use of the word. And it's the exact word usage.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Mon gets up and starts to give her speech. And my note goes here because this is where I can tell they're using the same soundtrack track as when Marva gives her speech that gets Ferrex to revolt under the speech that Mon Mothma gives that makes the entire galaxy revolt.
Oh, interesting.
It's the same soundtrack. It is audibly calling back to Marva's speech. Marva's Fight the Empire speech and Mon's The Monster Will Come for Us All speech, same narrative purpose, just on a grander scale. And they hearken to that by using the same song from the soundtrack.
Oh, I like that.
Yep. Malicious compliance. The fixing the door when those two techs had left the door broken all year and very clearly fixed it that like earlier that day or like the day
Yeah, yeah.
before because they knew the speech was coming.
Yeah, you really got to pay attention to this too
You
because it's
really got to pay attention because it's a little look that they give each other.
they just look at each other for like a quick second, and they kind of
Yep.
nod and smile, and you're just like, oh,
It goes back to theme of this show. As important as Mon Mothma's getting up on the stage and giving her grand moment, that only happens because a bunch of people also rebelled in tiny, tiny ways.
right.
It would be so tempting to just word for word read all of Mon Mothma's speech because it's so fucking good. It's Jesus Christ. The loss of an objective reality is perhaps the most dangerous. What the fuck was Dan Gilroy on when he wrote this?
I mean, I guess all you have to do is just like lock yourself away in a room and just like really. He probably did this for like days. I feel like he took in
This
right
is an
this like
insane speech because
yeah
then she drops the word genocide and that's what pisses the whole chamber off,
yeah
which is incredible that that's what does it because that's when everybody starts screaming that she's a traitor.
right
And that was also the moment that, like, the first time I watched this, it like full on hit me in the face when she was like, "We're gonna call this what it is." And I'm like, holy fucking shit. And then, remember I said the use of Palpatine's name is so intentional? Nobody in the Empire ever calls him Palpatine.
right
They always call him the Emperor.
the Emperor.
The Emperor. She calls him Palpatine. The last words of the speech that we get are Emperor Palpatine. And then the feed goes dead. This is so fucking good. Just Jesus.
Yeah.
I felt insane when I watched this. I felt insane the third time I watched this to take my notes for this.
I have a headcanon that like so you know how in Bad Batch, they're making this big moment. Senator is it Senator Tucci is giving her big, kind of breaking news, like look what actually
Yeah.
happened. Here's the real reveal of what's going on. And then Palpatine comes up out of the floor and interrupts it and is like, I know about this the whole time. Like, da da da.
R.I.P. to Rio Chuchi, who is definitely fucking dead by this point. She did not live to see this moment.
I mean, we don't know. We never saw a body, so
That's true. Well, she might have run away to join the rebellion, but who knows? Sorry, you were
who knows?
saying
So
that you
you
had
know
a
how that
headcanon.
moment happens, and if for a kind of a minor, not it's not minor, but like it's a moment that happens, right? I feel like my headcanon is that even in this moment, that's a very big moment that like literally if he had done the same thing, it would have been really dramatic, to come out and be like, oh no, actually that didn't really happen in Gorman. I feel like my headcanon is that he's literally doesn't care. Like he's so busy doing his Sith stuff right now. Like even this pivotal thing that's happening, like calling him out, being like, nah, he knew all this shit. He's gonna come for you and he's gonna come for your family, kind of thing. He's doing something else. He does not give a shit about the Senate anymore.
The thing with Palpatine is that he is playing on a game board that most of the galaxy doesn't know exists.
Right.
They don't know about the Death Star at this point. This is also a marked departure from Legends, where they figure out about the Death Star when stupid fucking reasons when they bring Bail and Mon and Garmbel Iblis onto the Death Star so that the Emperor can give them a whole speech about how much they suck. And then they have to escape the Death Star. That actually does happen. That's the plot of The Force Unleashed. I swear to God, that actually does happen. But like, they don't know about the Death Star, so they're playing on that scale. And then the Emperor knows about like crazy force shit, like he's operating on a level
Right.
he does not care.
No.
He does not care about this only so much as it inconveniences him.
Right.
And it does not start inconveniencing him until the Death Star blows up. And then suddenly he cares.
That's the only thing that gets his attention. He's like, oh, I actually have to come back from my vacation in Exegol and come to care about stuff again. Or wherever he is, I
Yep.
don't know. But
Fucked off to Exegol. Yeah, probably.
honestly, that's probably a good explanation of where he is right now. I mean, he's not doing, you know what I mean? Like he's not really around. And then it's like he doesn't show up until what is it? Empire, right? Like so it's
If you're watching this in chronological order, you will see him kind of in Rebels season 4, in the Rebels season 4 finale, in the series finale.
oh, okay.
You will briefly see him for like it's literally a second. You will see the Emperor in person. And then yeah, it's Empire Strikes Back is the
Right.
first time he shows
Yeah.
up.
So my headcanon is that he just kind of was taking a vacation to Exegol for a little bit to go do his Dark Force stuff. And then the Death Star blows up and he's like, oh shit, I gotta go back to work. Like
God damn it.
my fake work.
Gotta go back to my fake job and
My
go
fake
be
job.
Emperor.
Exactly.
That old senator lady was definitely in on it because you can see
Yeah.
how she kind of smirks. So shout out to her. I don't even know who she is, but shout out to her. And then we finally get Cassian, Andor, and Mon Mothma in the same room.
After years.
After fucking 12 plus 9, after 20 and a half episodes.
Right.
And damn near like 80% of this show, 90% of the show, they finally got these two in the same room.
I love how they're not even in the same room until literally there's 4 episodes left of the show. And then it's
Yep.
like, okay, well, arguably the two main characters of the show, and they just now meet for the first
They just
time.
are now meeting for the first time.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and he's also like using Vel to convince her
Smart.
to like. I also do wish we see Vel's like we see her scene later on in the episode. I wish we'd seen her reaction to this too.
Yeah, why wasn't she watching?
That would have been nice
Yeah.
to see what is Vel's reaction to the events that are happening on Coruscant, to where Mon is finally calling Emperor Palpatine a fuck ass bitch on live TV.
Right. And you'd think that like she would have been watching that. Like she would have been like, oh, let me do, because I mean, spoiler for a little bit later where Draven's like, hey, we're gonna go watch her second scene. You know what I mean? Like you'd think that they would have watched the original Imperial feed of her doing the speech just because I don't know. Maybe they were. We just didn't see it, but like
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that we didn't.
right, because now we can only pretend and guess, but yeah.
I know this is already a jam-packed episode, but like there's absence of stuff that we're missing with the Mon storyline, and I do think I wish we could have seen. I feel like Perrin and Lita are just missing.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like with Vel, it would have been nice, but it isn't necessary.
I actually think you could have used them in unison. I feel like we could have gotten a scene or just a shot of both
Love to
Vel
see
and the family watching simultaneously, going from their either reaction. So like Vel being like very proud and like whatever, and then maybe, you know, her
whatever's
family
happening with Perrin and Lita.
I don't know what their reaction would have been, but maybe it would have been more the opposite of that, right? Like, oh crap, like what is she actually doing? Like that's like she's being terrible.
This sequence where they come down out of the turbo lift and this ISB agent tries to arrest her. Erskine was already quickly becoming one of my new favorite Star Wars characters, just because I love him so much. Calling out that the ISB agent is a rebel spy to draw enough attention for Cassian to murder her,
Right.
cemented him as one of my favorite Star Wars characters.
Nice.
This dude is so clever.
Yeah.
Which it's funny because when we see him in Rebels, he's kind of whiny and annoying.
Mm.
And like he's just some like senator's attaché or whatever.
Right.
He's like her fucking annoying ass secretary who's just there to play the heel in the episode. And in this, he's like, no, this dude is smart. This dude is cunning. It's genius. And Mon's face when this woman gets shot, this is almost definitely the first time she's seen someone get fully gunned down in front of her. Not the first time she's ever seen someone die, because she did straight up kill a dude in The Mask of Fear.
Right.
But the first time she has seen someone get gunned down in public in front of her.
Right.
Also the line, "Welcome to the Rebellion." Beautiful.
Love it.
Don't fucking say it. I can't tell if you're frozen or just not fucking saying it.
Roll credits.
Fuck you. Fuck you, you goddamn motherfucker. You fucking piece of shit. You fucking asshole. Fuck you, Brad. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck yourself into the sun, you goddamn aging twink. Fuck yourself. Anyway, fuck you. I just love doing this podcast with you, Bradley.
Yeah, I know.
It's such an enjoyable experience. Speaking of Erskine, I love that he just fucking walks out the front door.
Oh yeah, he's just like, okay, peace, everyone. I'm gonna
Well,
go fuck off.
they're also trying to lock down the building, but they can't get everywhere.
Right,
Because they don't have enough troops at the Senate to be able to fully lock down the building, because that's what Legret is fucking screaming into the mic. Like, lock the building down. They can't lock down the garage, which is how Cassian and Mon get out.
Right.
They can't lock down the door, which Erskine just fucking walks out of. I also do like that it is sort of ambiguous whether or not Cloris was like going up there to help or going up there to detain her. Like, we see an insert shot of him listening to the speech, and then we get a shot of him looking at the blaster, but we don't see if he took the blaster or not. And I like that there is a little bit of ambiguity in that, because the way Cassian operates, if there is even a chance that he is an ISB spy, like he's going to put them in danger, no, he dies immediately.
Yeah, I thought about that too, because I was like, I feel like his instructions or whatever they may be is to always be with the vehicle so that in case she ever gets in the vehicle, he has control of where she goes. So it's kind of like a detain her kind of situation. He can just lock the door and then, like, you know, take her straight to ISB headquarters or whatever he needs to do, right? So for him to make that decision to leave the car and then be like, okay, I'm going to go find her myself because clearly something's happening or whatever, I don't really know. He's just an idiot. He just, I mean, he gets himself killed, obviously.
And when Mon says he's ISB, she has effectively told Cassian he needs.
Right. Kill him. He's ISB.
He's ISB.
Yep. But she still acts shocked when he does it.
She is shocked. No, she is shocked. She doesn't realize that she's effectively, the second she gives him that information,
it's like,
basically
okay,
signed Cloris's death warrant. Like,
right.
The minute she told Cassian that, but she doesn't realize that.
Right.
And, like, of course, we get the face that spawned 1,000 memes.
Yes, it was so good.
But I also think one thing to note, too, is she's much more horrified about this because she's known Cloris for 4 years.
Right. Even though she knew he was a spy,
she knows he's a spy.
Shocking to her.
Still worked with him for 4 years. So watching him die is even worse than watching that random person from Bale's security detail die.
Right. I was just going to say, this is also worth noting that I think when the first bits of news about this show or like behind the scenes were starting to come out, these were the scenes that were leaked or visual of them where Mon and Cassian running, you know, in Valencia, Spain, basically. These were the first shots that we ever saw.
Because they're exterior shots in the middle of a city center, and we were able to get photographed them. Yep. Which is also how I kind of knew immediately going into the season that this was coming.
Right.
I love the final shot of Bale realizing that he's now alone in the Senate. He's in the same position that Mon was in for this entire time. And then my final note for this section is, oh shit, Yularen is calling.
Ooh,
at the
that's
ISB,
not a good sign.
Which my thought was, this motherfucker's gonna die.
Yeah.
No, he lives. We see him in the next section. He actually somehow survives the events of this show, and I don't know how. He does not get fucking executed over this.
Well, that we, I guess, know of in the text. Like, I mean, it could have happened later.
He doesn't get
on.
executed for this. He might get executed later on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think this is just him getting a reprimand. It's not necessarily like
he's getting chewed out.
Yeah, he's basically learns like, what the fuck? Why did you not
just happen?
Shut? Also, why don't they just have like a general kill switch? Like, you'd think they would, like inside the ISB. You think that would be like a thing.
Because people don't know the ISB is monitoring the Senate this close.
That's true.
Yeah, they don't have they can't move a big button in there. That's also not how the ISB operates. They have field agents that will push the big button for them. The ISB is monitoring. But also we see throughout this season, the ISB is slowly losing power. They are losing power and they are losing influence within the broader empire.
Section 6. On Yavin 4, a rebel officer briefs new recruits while Vel inspects their weapons. She finds a blaster and asks who it belongs to. Melshi raises his hand and claims it. Back on Coruscant, Cassian and Mon arrive at the safe house where Erskine greets them. In the kitchen, Clea expresses shock that they escaped. In the bedroom, Cassian finds Wilmond with a bandaged leg seated beside Drina, who also escaped Ghorman. Clea tells Mon that Luthen made it out, and she informs Cassian he must leave soon. Erskine explains Mon is headed off-world to make a speech before traveling to Yavin 4. Mon thanks Cassian for saving her, and he replies, "Make it worth it."
So I didn't really get what the fuck was going on in the Bell and Melshi scene the first time I
Okay,
watched it.
so
It had to
I'm
be
confused.
pointed out to me.
Yeah.
It had to be pointed out to me. What's happening in this scene is the blaster is Cassian's blaster from Aldani.
What?
Follow me here.
Okay.
It's the blaster that Cassian has on Aldani, or a blaster from Aldani.
Sure.
Cassian takes it with him to Niamos. It's on Niamos during the whole Narkina 5. When they go back to Niamos and Cassian retrieves the lockbox from his apartment, he gives this blaster to Melshi.
Okay.
Melshi turns the blaster in when he joins the rebellion. Vel, from Aldani, recognizes it as Cassian's blaster.
Okay.
That's why she has the reaction she has.
Okay.
Because it's an Aldani blaster.
No, I get it, but it's like I don't see the point of
I
all
also
of
do
that.
not see the point. It is just to introduce that Melshi is here now.
Like it's so complicated of a plot of being like she recognizes the gun and is like, okay, who's this guy?
Well,
The
this
guy from the
clearly
Rogue
was
One movie. Like
clearly was something they were setting up. Like you can tell
yeah,
the
like
plan for the show. You can tell they had a plan for the show.
sure.
And the scene is still in there, but it hits weird because we don't have other plot that would or character moments that would have needed to be around this to make this work.
Yeah, I just feel like it was meant to be this is like an artifact of something that maybe was supposed to be more important than it is. I don't know. Like maybe there was a subplot with Melshi and Vel being like, "Oh, you knew Cassian, great. I trust you now and
Yeah, I
let's do
think that's
something."
what was
Yeah.
supposed to be going on here, but we have to blink and you miss it.
Okay, whatever. Moving on.
I do believe also you can see the blaster that Jen steals in Rogue One on the table.
Great. More random Easter eggs I don't have time to
More
look
random
for.
fucking Easter eggs. Hey, did you know this is a prequel to Rogue One?
Hey, did you know that there's a whole entire 2-season series that's based on this one movie?
It's a prequel series to a prequel movie.
Oh my God, I just realized that. That's crazy.
Yes,
They
it is
made a
a
prequel to a
prequel
prequel
to a
to a
prequel.
prequel. Yeah, the prequel to a prequel.
Yes. Oh shit, Wilman and Drina survived
They're alive.
somehow.
Somehow Wilman escaped.
Yep, he got really fucked up.
But clearly this is true love because she saved him clearly because she's fine.
Yes.
So
Yes, she's fine. She clearly saved his ass.
so she saved his
makes
ass.
sense.
So it's true love.
All right. We get lines about they want Mon to make another speech. They want to rewrite the narrative, whatever. Let's talk about all of Mon's fucking speech. Okay. So
It's like, how many are there?
so if you watch the Rebels episode Secret Cargo, which I have, she gives a speech. They play a clip, quote unquote, of the Ghorman denouncement speech in that. And it is a very boilerplate, like, I name the Emperor personally responsible for ordering the atrocities on Ghorman. I hereby resign the Senate to fight for you, the people. It's this very, like, kids writers writing a politician's. And I believe there was an interview where Tony Gilroy talked about Dan Gilroy, who wrote these episodes, to being like, do I have to use this fucking speech? And the answer was no. This is a case, unlike the K2SO thing, which I'm very, very complicated about, I can make this one work. I can make this one work pretty fucking easily.
Okay.
So I'm pretty okay with it. That it's possible that they had re-recorded another speech with her that was a little more sanitized.
Right.
That the rebellion did to go out to other rebel cells, or I think it was Wyatt on First Steps, the Star Wars podcast. I think it was Wyatt who proposed this idea, but I know it was somebody on First Steps, the Star Wars podcast, proposed the idea of like digitally editing or digitally recreating or using AI within the context of the universe to make a much more sanitized speech to put online.
Okay.
Basically the equivalent of like editing the stream after you stream it.
Right.
To where if you watched it live, you got the Ghorman denouncement speech that we got in Andor. But if you watched the playback on the HoloNet, it was a different, much more sanitized speech. That was one option that was brought up. But I can sort of make it work.
Right.
And like also there's very much an understanding when you go from, because I did the second time I watched this, I watched with my boyfriend and then I watched Secret Cargo while I ate dinner. And they work pretty well. You can tell that Rebels is doing a much more like PG version of this.
Right.
Which you can even just kind of headcanon as the same speech and it changes nothing. That's exactly what I think is going on. That's my headcanon as proposed to me by
that
First
sounds
Steps
right.
Star Wars podcast.
There's a live version and there's the edited
There's
version
a live
afterwards.
version
Yeah.
and there's the edited version. And
Sure.
again, I got to tell you, going straight from this to Secret Cargo lines up pretty well.
Cool.
It lines up pretty well. And then the speech she gives at the end, the big speech, the one that Draven is talking about, with her big formation of the Alliance to Restore the Republic moment, hits really, really differently. Also, Genevieve O'Reilly is playing Mon Mothma in both things.
Nice.
Which is, in case you were unaware, if you never watched Rebels, which I know Bradley has, but in case the audience was unaware, Genevieve O'Reilly does play Mon Mothma in Star Wars Rebels.
I love that.
My final note is they are really getting the money out of this set.
They said we have to reuse every single set at least 3 times in the show. That's the rule of 3. Like they're like, first it's gonna be Cassian and Bix live in this apartment. Then it's gonna be Cassian comes back to this apartment, and then it's gonna be Cassian and Mon come back to this apartment. They're like, how many times do we have to use this set? As many times as it goddamn takes.
We paid for this fucking set. We are going to use it.
We put real cups and spoons in the cabinets. We are going to continue to use this set as it's a real set and it's a functioning set. Section 7. Back on Yavin 4, a U-Wing lands and Cassian disembarks while Drina helps medics unload a wounded Wilman. Draven says Mon is en route with Gold Squadron and her upcoming speech will be broadcast widely. Cassian returns to his treehouse with Bix and tells her he's finished with the rebellion and wants to leave with her. In the morning, Cassian wakes up alone. He searches the house and finds a datapad message from Bix. She explains that she left because she knows he still belongs with the rebellion. She says she cannot be the reason he walks away and vows to fight the Empire in her own way. Cassian races to the spaceport but arrives too late. Later, a man informs Cassian that the KX droid is ready to be powered up, and in the hangar, an engineer explains the challenges of reprogramming the unit as Cassian and several rebels stand guard with weapons. The engineer activates the droid and it turns to face the group and politely asks if the weapons could be pointed elsewhere.
So we do get they're not going to log this entire thing because, by the way, all of this, Ghorman and the Coruscant, was all the same trip. So we do get the Draven saying they're not going to log it, which kind of explains like how we get a different version of how Cassian and K2 met. But then we get the greatest moment in the show when they say our name.
They say
on
Gold
screen.
Squadron.
They do say Gold Squadron because in Secret Cargo, Gold Squadron are the escort.
Right.
So we get that nod to Rebels for them to be like, yes, we know Rebels exist.
Right. Well, I mean, honestly, if you're going to make this show in the time frame that you're making it and where you're making it, it's like you can't really avoid the entirety of Rebels because it literally happens both simultaneously and like it was a big part of the story. I mean, it's just there's not much you can avoid because it's a major part of the canon that leads up to Rogue One, basically before this show existed. This what Rebels essentially was the prequel to Rogue One, and then now it's kind of like Andor is the semi-pre is like the more, I don't want to say more accurate, but the more
Rebels
connective.
is more of a Rebels is more of a prequel to the original trilogy.
Right.
That it is to Rebels does what The Force Unleashed wanted to do, which is successfully bridge the gap between the prequels and the originals.
There you go.
There we go. I just love that in this episode, the episode I've been waiting years for, they say Gold Squadron in it. That's just amazing.
I love that.
Shout out to me for winning super hard. Draven does say it's the result that matters. Interesting. But he's also talking about like nobody's going to know what we do. There's not going to be an official record.
Right.
It's an interesting contrast to like Cyril, what we talked about with Cyril, to where part of the tragedy of Cyril is that no one will ever remember him or anything that he did. But he was instrumental in the Ghorman massacre. No one will ever remember Cassian or what he did. But that's okay because what Cassian was ultimately fighting for, which was freedom, that's what matters.
Right.
Freedom from the Empire's tyranny. I also do like that Draven does offer to let Cassian watch the speech. Draven gets a bad rap for being a dick, and he's going to continue to be a dick throughout episodes 11 and 12. Also, he's kind of not wrong about the stuff he says, but he does get a bad rep for being a dick.
Right.
It's not as much of a dick. Like he's making Cassian overtures. He's trying to be a good leader. He's trying to be a good manager. He's just kind of an asshole. I love that Audria's acting. You can literally see Bix look away when Cassian tells her that he's done with the rebellion. I love that. I love the subtle acting when she's listening to him.
Right, because she's already made the video at this point.
No, she's not made the video at this point.
Oh, I'm sorry. She makes it when he goes to sleep. But but you know that she's going to.
She's going to make the video.
She already knows she's
She
going to
already knows
do
she's
this.
gonna.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then I love that her one of her only lines in that sequence is when she says, "I'm listening," as opposed to remember Narkina 5, nobody's listening.
Mm.
One of the last things she ever says to Cassian is she's acknowledging that she's hearing him. My next note is just this scene hurts. Shout out to Adria, because wow.
Yeah, it's also really hard to act when you're staring at the camera
Yes.
and you're giving essentially a monologue. Like it's really hard to stay in that character and then just be like just straight up staring at nobody and acting against nobody. Like you are looking at a black circle and you are really just like trying to keep that character going. So shout out to her. So that's really impressive.
Even on stage, monologuing is one of the hardest things that you can do. You didn't have to take any acting classes, but we did. It's fucking hard when you don't have a scene partner.
Right.
It's real fucking hard to keep that momentum going because this scene is what ultimately got me was the realization that Bix is a believer. And in this specific moment, she is choosing to be a believer for both herself and Cassian because she believes in the rebellion's cause, and also she believes in Cassian, and Cassian doesn't believe in either of those things. And she is choosing to believe for him because she knows that ultimately she will be vindicated, which she is, but she will also never know that, which is part of the ending. We'll get to it. This scene hurt. Cassian goes running off after her. He is told that like we're waiting on a freighter to come in, which I'm sure is not the ghost, but it's really funny to headcanon it as the ghost. Like Cassian get off the landing platform, having your big like breakup moment. The ghost is about to show up. And then I think one of the last things she says to him is like, "I'll find you."
Yeah, that one's rough.
That one's rough. Oh boy, that one's rough.
Yeah, that one's rough because spoiler alert, they never meet each other ever
They
again.
will not.
They never see each other ever again.
Anyway, we got to have a random funny scene with
Yeah,
the engineer getting randomly pedantic about reprogramming.
we got to throw in a comedy scene whenever it involves K2SO.
Yep, the scene is suddenly funny. This guy's suddenly hilarious, and then K2SO is turned. The KX unit is turned on, and it speaks in a voice. Bradley, who has joined the cast of this show.
It is reprising his role from Rogue One. It is the Alan Tudyk.
We already covered him on our Rogue One episode, so go back and listen to our Rogue One episodes if you want to know about him.
Yes, but fantastic voice actor and regular actor. He does both, but
He's just good at everything he does.
he really is.
Fan-fucking-tastic.
And that's it.
Same writer and director from the last two. So we're still going. We will switch one more time next week. But Bradley, what are your final thoughts on this episode?
Final thoughts on this episode. I think this was a pretty solid fucking episode. Like it is pretty good. I mean, I don't think there's much to change. Like I said, I think there's a few little things at the end, but I think it's because we're starting to sprinkle in the what you like to call the Rogue One prequel, basically, is the next three episodes. So I think they really did have to kind of sprinkle that stuff in now just to kind of get us used to being like, okay, we're on Yavin, we're doing more Rogue One stuff. It's basically here. This my only thing is that this is its own episode. I don't think that yes, it connects to the plot of the Gorman Massacre. However, now that we've watched all three of them, I think that the Gorman Massacre is its own two plot part one of the story. And then this Mon Mothma episode is part two, is its own thing. I think this works well on its own. I don't think you actually need to watch all three of them together. I think you can watch the first two and be pretty satisfied because they end so perfectly. And then you can watch this as a totally separate week or whatever. Like if this was like a week long, like we had to wait each week for each episode, I feel like if you would have just finished last week, you would have been perfectly happy, and then you wouldn't have been like, oh my God, I have to wait and see what happens next week because it ends so well. I think this one is its own great mini kind of arc. It's because we have kind of been sidelining Mon Mothma up until this point. And so the fact that we're finally giving her like a full episode of her own to just go for it is great. And so I really love that.
My final thought is that I personally won I am the winner. This is what I wanted. This is my favorite piece of Star Wars media, visual media to date.
Love that for you.
Has beaten out The Last Jedi
Oh, wow.
to be the number one spot. This episode is crazy. And it was exactly what I wanted. It was everything I wanted. Is it flawed in places? Yes. Do I care? No. Is The Last Jedi also flawed in places? Yes. Do I care? No. Bradley, what are we talking about next week?
Next week, we're talking about episode 10, Make It Stop.
This episode, it might actually be perfect.
Oh, okay.
I am
Whoa.
struggling very hard. I will try to
Whoa.
look for it when I go to watch it, but I actually think this one might be a 10 out of 10. I watched this episode with my boyfriend, who is a nurse and a pedant, and he loved this episode.
Okay. Big praise.
A little preview for next week. Plug-a-bulls. Bradley does a whole lot of reality TV, including such wonderful shows as Temptation Island that I spent 20 minutes in the extended cut complaining to him about. Shows like Queen's Court, The Circle, Married to Medicine's later seasons, and also King's Court coming to Bravo in, when is this episode airing?
July 13th.
This episode's airing July 7th.
Right.
So this upcoming Saturday on Bravo, July 13th, you can watch King's Court. You can find me on the Star Wars TTRPG podcast for Light and Dice. You can also find queer mystery thriller books that I write. It's called Beach House Studios. Those are available on Amazon, Kobo, and Barnes & Noble. And you can also find me involved with Legacy Expo, an expanded universe event. If you liked all the legend stuff that I talked about in this episode, you can come to that, and there will be lots of conversations about the old expanded universe material and a lot of great merch. We also have a Patreon now that is not in our outro socials because I haven't gotten around to recording it because I'm so busy with Legacy Expo. You can find that on patreon.com/Gold Squadron Gaze. For just $3 a month, you can join us as one of our co-pilots and get extended video versions of our episodes, including our 10 to 20 minute warm-ups at the start of every episode where we talk about anything and everything that is not Star Wars. Bradley, we're actually making pretty good time, so I'm just going to play you out with Run the Socials. Thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gaze. Did Charles fuck something up? Email us at goldsquadrongaze@gmail.com and let us know. You can follow us on BlueSky, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Gold Squadron Gaze. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Gold Squadron Gaze, where we post full episodes of this podcast. If you like the podcast, you can also rate us and review us on your favorite podcast app of choice. Please join us next week and every week for another episode of Gold Squadron Gaze. Jesus, one of them has 12 chapters.
Jesus Christ. Okay,
and
people have too much time on their hands.
One of them has 52,000 words.
You know what? Bless that author. Bless them and the time that they took to do that. Wow. Good for them.
Yep.